What's up, everybody? Dr. Trevor Wilkins here. If you're new to the channel, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I specialize in treating things like complex PTSD, those that work with military or public safety, those that have dealt with traumatic events, adults with childhood trauma. You can see through some of my series of videos what I'm passionate about. My last video that I posted earlier this week, and I've been through a series of kind of what PTSD is and what EMDR can do for it. My last video talked specifically about combat military and that combat kind of side of public safety when you're dealing with specifically critical events that'll kind of change the makeup of who you are. Now I actually want to talk about EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and how it helps with a lot of those things. Because I think there's a lot of mystery about how this modality that's gaining popularity actually helps with things and what it can help with. It's not just about memories. It's not about being calm. In fact, I believe, and this is my opinion, that EMDR is gaining in popularity over the last 10 to 20 years because it has been around since the 70s. Since it was created, it's been studied and the studies have been reproduced. We know it actually works. I see it in my own office. I see it online when I work with people. But I think it's gained a lot of popularity because for the last 20 years, it's 2023 now, we've had kind of ongoing battle, ongoing combat, and we've had to up our game a little bit about how to treat those that are not doing well. So what does it actually do? Well, it's processing memories through use of bilateral stimulation. What I like to say about EMDR is it treats maladaptively processed or unprocessed memories. I'm going to make a video separately about what's actually going on there with that lack of processing, why it kind of gets stuck maybe on one side of the brain, and the different things that we know that are going on in the brain that are activated. I've made some videos just recently about the neurology of the brain and how some of that changes and when you deal with trauma. But I want to tell you a couple of things about EMDR itself. So the first thing that it helps with, and if you remember from my last videos, I'm always going to refer to my notes just a little bit. I want to be succinct about this, but processing trauma memories. This is in its core what EMDR does. Some of those memories get stuck. Now, there's been belief for a long time that it might have to do with the left and right hemispheres of the brain. I think there's probably some truth to that when we look at different brain scans. There will be some naysayers that say that there might be a little less evidence about the left and right parts of the brain. But I will tell you this. Unprocessed gets stuck kind of like a raw nerve if you haven't processed the memory. Now, processing the memory to me is not exposure therapy. We're not going to sit and go detail to detail, line by line about the event itself. There is one protocol called RTEP about recent traumatic memories with EMDR, but it's rarely used unless the memory is very recent. That's the most type of EMDR that I use where you're going to go through a whole memory. Very different than what you're normally seeing as EMDR, what's referred to as EMDR, in these processing previous memories. What's normally going on is we're processing those maladaptively processed or unprocessed memories. And the way I like to describe that is you get stuck there as a raw nerve. And if you've ever had a kid fall, scrape their knee on the concrete, it's a raw nerve now. You don't have to touch it to make it hurt. You blow air in its general direction, that kid will scream, right? I think that's what these memories kind of get stuck as, raw nerves. I don't know if that would be backed up in wording scientifically by maybe the people that study neurology for a living, but I'm telling you what I see in my own office and online and the things that I dealt with personally. They get stuck like a raw nerve, and it only takes one thing from that memory, a sight, a sound, a smell, a belief, a feeling, the weather, a color, anything that will bring that memory back to the forefront. And what I like to say is in PTSD, trauma is current. The past is present. Now, part of your brain, things like prefrontal cortex, they understand that you're not in the middle of the trauma, but they're not the ones responding. It's those fight or flights. It's the limbic system. It's the amygdala, the hippocampus, the lizard parts of the brain that will tell you that you're in danger now, right? You're in danger now. So it's almost as if the event is going on, even though you are cognitively aware that it's not. That's the raw nerve. That's the part that gets you in trouble. How many people you've seen maybe hear a loud noise or smell a certain smell, or they get into a crowded place, or they get to a dark place, or they're being followed. Anything that will set off a memory that is maladaptively processed. We kind of jammed it down in there to get it out of the way, or not processed at all. It's going to reactivate some of that. So We have to deal with processing the memory. And what I see with that, again, not going through the whole memory, what I see is we finally kind of get it into that box on the shelf, not forgotten. If I could cause amnesia, I'd probably be rich. But put away on that shelf in the right box. You can open it when you need it. There might be some information in there you need in the future. You're not trying to get rid of the memory as a whole. I can't promise you that. And in my opinion, you need to keep the memory. You just need to get rid of the overreaction to it. That's one. Two, the desensitization and reprocessing of those memories. Again, this ties a little bit back into number one that I was talking about with the processing, but if you are still overly sensitive, not in an emotional, weak way, if you're overly sensitive to the sights and the sounds and the feelings and the things that happen and the moral injury that may have caused the survivor's guilt, like I talked about in my last video, any of this stuff will bring that to the front. Right, will re-traumatize yourself almost. That amygdala goes on fire, it reactivates it. You're re-experiencing the traumas, I like to say. And what EMDR will help you do is get that put away on that shelf, not only the memory itself, but the overreaction to it. Our bodies and our brains are being oversensitive to things it doesn't need. We don't want to be numb. We don't need to shut all emotions off. I know that sounds good to some people. It's not healthy. Those of you that have come to my office or reached out to me online that said, I don't feel anything, and now it's starting to ruin other relationships, know that numb isn't always good unless it's at the right time. But that oversensitization of it, right? That it's too strong. You don't feel like you can operate normally when some of these things gets re-triggered. That's what EMDR does. The reducing hyperarousal will go along with that as well. I don't think that arousal, or I don't think that being vigilant is a problem. It's the hyperarousal and the hypervigilant that cause me problems. To this day, sounds cheesy to some, I'm sure, that haven't been there. I still don't sit with my back to the door when I go places. Do I think I'm Superman? I'm going to stop all problems? No, but I want to see the problem before it sees me, right? I'm the protector of my community, of myself. My community's a lot smaller these days in my own family. I'm not out serving the community like I used to in a uniform, but I'm still the protector of mine and those around me. So I still want to keep that important. So I'm still going to be vigilant, but the hyperarousal is exhausting. It is mentally and physically exhausting. When you can't go places because you're so hypervigilant that you're stressed beyond level 10, that's because of maladaptively processed or unprocessed memories. There can be some biological and neurological things to that I've talked about in previous videos. I'm talking about the actual memory part now. When we do things like process those memory, get away from the hypervigilance of it, the hyperarousal, I consistently see will go down as well. It is mentally and physically exhausting to have that. Restoring neural balance. Again, I mentioned in previous videos, I talked about the neurological part of this. We've got to get that back to whatever normal is, or at least normal functioning. You cannot stay on that adrenaline-ridden, hyper-aroused, terrible low or high dopamine level, absolute staying in those unbalanced neurological states. One of the things that EMDR does by processing the trauma, it's not going to change the chemicals in your brain, obviously. We're not doing brain surgery. One of those things that EMDR will do by processing or reprocessing that memory, getting rid of that hypervigilance, getting rid of the hyperarousal, getting rid of that being in your face, like I like to say, that trauma's right here in your face all the time, that's not healthy, is that we're going to return you back to some balance in that neurology. And I'm not talking about, again, the chemicals. I know if you're a neuroscientist or somebody that strictly studies these parts of the brains, I might not always use the right words. I'm a therapist, okay? I'm here for the healing part of this, but I do want people to see what's going on and what we can help with. The best description I ever got about EMDR is that before it, the trauma felt like it was right here in their face, in color, every sight, every sound, can't get away from it. That's a really tough way to live. And after EMDR, it was back here, kind of in black and white with no sound. Obviously, the memory is still going to be there. Obviously, the pain is still going to be there. The loss is still going to be there. The trauma is still going to be there. This is an amnesia. But man, I can really survive a lot better with that trauma back here in black and white. I can survive so much better if everything isn't filtered through this right in my face problem, this right in my face trauma. If this describes you, please reach out. Whether I'm the person to help you or not, I'll gladly guide you in the right direction. I get the honor of helping people on a daily basis that are dealing with these things. These are my specialties. And I don't take that lightly. I take it honorably as well. But if I'm not the right person for you, and you just have a question or need to be led to somebody that might be a better fit, then please reach out anyway. If this is something you need help with, please reach out. I'm not trying to sell you something. theangryvikingtherapist.com. I'll be glad to talk with you. We can't do long therapy sessions through Instagram Messenger, okay? But please reach out. Let me at least get you in the right direction, get you the help that you need, whether that's me or somebody else, or at least be able to understand what the hell is going on with you. Understand where I spent so many years suffering from these things, having to find the modalities, having to go to school to figure out what the hell was wrong with me, and it turned into a pretty cool way for me to help others. If this is you, please reach out. theangryvikingtherapist.com. There's also ways on there to reach out to me through other social media.